The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we're a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in horror franchises. And today we are discussing Hellraiser, Hellseeker from 2002. Now we left on a very positive note at the end of the Inferno discussion because you said something that really stuck with me, which was like, man, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what's next because anything can happen. Like, let's roll into this with some positivity. And so I'm assuming you got what you were asking for. Is that correct?
I mean, in that anything could happen also includes this being Hellraiser Inferno 2. Yes.
Yes. And anything can happen in such a way that A, nothing happens, and B, anything can happen from any stretch of 4 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
That is completely inconsequential from the rest. So yes, anything.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Anything can happen. It could all of a sudden just be an episode of Bluey. It's fine.
Right. Bluey has such sights to show your children.
It's a weird episode. I'm not saying it's a popular one or good, but it's
right. I do think, I mean, when we were discussing Inferno and I said I thought, you know, that movie had a lot of pass out wake ups. Mm-hmm. Maybe I was remembering this one.
I was thinking about that during this. It was like, obviously it's easy to confuse the two. Yeah. I will eventually get into spoilers, obviously, but the same like structure as Inferno. As soon as that started happening, I was like, this is probably what Jim was thinking about.
Exactly. Yeah. It's and some reviews of this I've read did call out Jacob's Ladder. And
very much so.
We mentioned that last week, I think. And it does make me kind of want to watch Jacob's Ladder again because I remember liking that movie a fair amount.
It's great.
And having all the same sort of pass out, wake up, dream logic kind of thing. And I wonder what about that I like. Whereas this, it's not working for me.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a few things in that, like, it's without getting too much away about Jacob's Ladder. But like there are characters there that you care about. And for one, it speaks to a larger thing rather than just being a plot twist.
Yeah.
That's thematically richer than perhaps Hellraiser, Hellseeker, Inferno 2.
So who is seeking hell?
Good call. Well, the people renting it, I would assume, because this was a straight to DVD thing. So I would think they were like, man, I'm miserable. I would like to be more so.
Yeah. So that's it, audience. We didn't so much care for this one. So thanks for sticking with us through these. But no, I mean, yes, it is striking how they followed up Inferno with essentially the same idea. Now, like, what does our protagonist do? Like, he's not a detective. He works.
He's an office man. He's
You know, when he goes to his office, I was half thinking, like, are they going to do this like hell is your own office and you're a coworker type of deal? And I was like, well, that's a little too comedic for Hellraiser, although you could get away with that. Maybe the hell is other people.
Sure. That seems like a part of it, because particularly with the same rotating cast of characters he keeps running into.
Yeah.
It seems like that was maybe a theme they were going for as well. It's strange because, like, Rick Bota, the director of this, and we'll hear that name again going forward.
Oh, at least 2 more times.
Yeah, he has a background being a director of photography for Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
And just like the Crypt Keeper sections, I guess. That makes sense that this guy had a Tales from the Crypt background, because this thing could have worked as a Tales from the Crypt episode, which is to say that it is a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
But it's a Twilight Zone episode that really strains under the weight of its running time. Like, if this was a 25-minute long thing, it'd be like, that wasn't great, but okay.
Right.
Whereas this just like, it keeps, as you said, there's so much like pass out wake ups and the stakes aren't raised or changed in any way through most of it. And you really stop caring about what's happening.
Right.
Because it's, as you mentioned, like, stuff seems rather disconnected to the rest of it.
Yeah. And they rely a lot on flashbacks. And so,
which may or may not even be real, because by the end of this, you're like, what even happened?
Well, they sure were blue. They were blue. So you've got that. You know, with his experience on stuff like Tales from the Crypt, too, you know, we always talk about when you're shooting on a television schedule, you're spry. You can get stuff done. You kind of like learn your technique through there. It's like, we say acting on daytime soaps. It's like a boot camp because you got to get so many pages a day. And so unfortunately, it just seems like he brought over half the look of television instead of just like the workman-like kind of schedule that I'm sure he had to stick to.
Yeah. And I mean, like, this is in no way a criticism of it because this stuff happens. But I noticed that particularly in The Office, there'd be a scene of people walking down this wall of cubicles, turning and going into this one area. And it was the same shot every time. It's like it happened 2 or 3 times. So it's not like it was, it wasn't enough to like have a thematic resonance or anything, but it just kind of felt like, we've got this set up. Let's make it work. Because they had no money for this. I mean, their budget
was like $3 million or something, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, it's another straight to video thing. So they don't, Miramax doesn't care that much. But it's like, you got to do that stuff to make it work on that budget. But he still, I guess he was a big fighter for the car crash at the beginning, which made me think of Texas Chainsaw 2 and how when they were shooting it, they're like, well, let's just show them this car, some of the more actiony stuff. We'll shoot that right away. So then, that'll get the money people off our backs. So they'll be like, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
He's like, we got to keep the audience engaged. And
totally. And it is funny to think about what the first Hellraiser was shot for less than $1 million, like 14 years before.
Right.
This is 3 times the budget and does not look nearly as atmospheric.
No.
Granted, that's inflation. Thanks, Joe Biden.
Yeah. Thanks for your time travel inflation.
I'm gonna put another problem at your feet. Hellseeker.
Why not?
Yeah.
It's not like he knows.
He's trapped in some sort of internal hell over the last 4 years.
Oh man.
But yeah, it's the dollar does not go too far. In fact, it goes right into the lake in this movie because, man, they do reuse those shots a lot too. And it is a case of, hey, you shot a stunt, you milk that footage for as much as you possibly can. Yeah, well, one way they did that is they had for the scenes where they're inside the car under the water, which is, I mean, that's shooting underwater. That's that's so expensive. Like, this is expensive and difficult to do. So I am making fun of it, but also it's still difficult to do.
Yeah. So they lowered the car and they had a crane that lowered the car in because it's like vertical. So they could do the scenes under there. And then to film the actual crash, they just lifted it out of the water and then dropped it that way.
Oh,
I'm like,
that's awesome.
That's pretty great. That's pretty ingenious.
That's so good.
And there's a couple of moments of cleverness here that I mean, like, that's something you wouldn't know watching the movie. I found that out later, but there's one shot later, one little gimmick that really I was very excited about.
I feel like this movie is going to be difficult to talk about in any sort of linear state because, again, nothing matters here.
No.
We could go through this like we often do, but it would just be, me being frustrated about talking about something that doesn't matter every single time. So let's scrap that idea.
Yeah, because this movie's not really interested in linearity other than it starts at the beginning with our main character, Trevor, played by Dean Winters. Most people know him as is he Chaos in the insurance ads or whatever?
I think so. Yeah.
Or Dennis Duffy from 30 Rock.
One of the endless of the insurance world.
Yes. Oh man, that's a grim way to put it, but it's true.
We cannot make those references anymore, I guess.
And I like him. I like him as an actor. I think he's good
fine.
in this. I like him better than Craig Schaefer in the last one.
Oh yes.
No offense, Craig. It was more just what the character is. Although it also doesn't make any sense. But we'll get to that. But he's in a car with his girlfriend or wife. I'm sorry, Kirsty, Ashley Lawrence, back again, only to have the most unceremonious send off since Devon Sawa was hit by a brick in Final Destination 2, where it's like, oh, Ashley's back. Oh, they killed Ashley. Okay.
Yeah.
They drive off a bridge. They're smooching in the car, and that smooching runs them into trouble because they almost hit another car, and then he swerves and drives off a bridge.
See, kids, don't smooch and drive.
Do not smooch and drive.
Were you excited to see our dear final girl?
It was nice to see her. Yeah, I didn't really realize when I saw in the credits.
Right.
I was like, oh, that's cool, because we hadn't seen her at all other than like a tiny little sequence in part 3, and so it was nice to revisit her. Because it also occurred to me that since 3, this has shifted to a male protagonist series. Like we've gotten rid of quote unquote final girl, and it's all just been like just random schmoes.
Yeah.
But that excitement was a little tamped down by my just rocking out to that theme song. Whoa, that sounded like a cop show intro.
Right.
Like, where's Christopher Young?
Right.
Good God.
Right. Yeah, I had seen this movie before, but it had been, maybe 20 years. So I had forgotten that that Kirsty was back in this movie. And so when her name came up, practically top billed, I can't remember, but it is early on. I was just like, are they just squeezing out a cameo, like a part 3 kind of situation? And then she's in the beginning scene and then gone. According
to that, the Hellraiser films and their legacy was that this was initially, they're like, oh, well, we could have Kirsty be in it, but we don't know how to get in touch with her, or like, we can't get in touch with her. So we'll just rewrite it. So it's named Kirsty as a nod, but it's someone else. And then Doug Bradley was like, hey, why don't you call her? Yeah. And they did, but it was like, they were like 3 days away from shooting.
Jesus.
And so they're like, they can't rewrite everything again. So I think she maybe had a bigger role at the beginning, but then they rewrote it to be not that. And then they're like, we can't just redo everything. So we'll kind of bring her in. According to her, she was like, yeah, I knew this was going to be like a cameo thing. So
yeah.
And she said that she got paid enough to make a down payment on a refrigerator.
Right. But, I love how frank that is. I mean, didn't you have to get a fridge recently?
No, I almost did, but then
because I was going to suggest, like, why wouldn't you just be in a Hellraiser movie?
I should just be in a Hellraiser. I mean, there's probably going to be, more, just call it Miramax.
You can buy a new fridge.
Yeah, I'm just a guy. And like, great, we need to hold on to the rights of this. We need to make another one.
And that man needs a fridge. So
yeah,
I see no other solution here.
It's the only way forward in Trump's America. So it's hey, fans. Here's Kirsty, but then we're going to make this story about her husband.
Yeah.
And there's weird elements. There's weird things I've read where like Rick Bota got rid of some stuff because he didn't want to confuse people that this would be the first Hellraiser they're seeing. Dude, this is the 6th Hellraiser movie.
Yeah.
No one has seen this without knowing what the first one is.
There's a scene later on between Kirsty and Pinhead that was edited down where Pinhead talks about Frank and Julia and that kind of stuff that was excised from the movie. You can find it on YouTube, but I'm sure that must have been his thinking. Like, oh, we can't reference these much more interesting characters because there are going to be so many people that jumped in at part 6.
Yeah, and he apparently like opened that whole monologue up to Doug Bradley and was like, write this, like go nuts with it, add some backstory if you want, like just have fun with it. Doug Bradley did, and then he excised it later. I was unclear. I have not gotten a definitive reason why. There are some people that say that because Bota claims to have shown this to Clive Barker against the studio's wishes, who offered some notes on like particularly the 3rd act, and so that they excised some of that down. He also said that that Clive Barker was like, oh, this is the best one yet. So
Sure, Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't know. No way to confirm or deny that. That's
fair enough. Yep.
But so that got lost, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
But this is another one of those cases of this was in fact a different script for a different type of film. Shoehorn some Pinhead in. Rick Bota comes along. We're going to get the Botaverse going forward. The next 2 are also Rick Bota joints. So he is in control right now of slamming together some Cenobites with a cop script that was laying around.
Cenobites barely appear in this movie.
Right.
I mean, it is wild to do, obviously, as we've restated several times on the show, that it's always, there's big questions about how do you keep this franchise going? Do you do brand new things? Do you give them the same thing? And on one level, it makes sense when you're dealing with someone like a Jason, where it's like, look, people, they kind of realize people are just coming to watch this guy do these crazy ass kills, and we'll do some loose stories. And then eventually in the latter ones just became like, no, he's back from the dead. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about how that keeps happening. It's just, it does.
Fine.
People just want to see this. It's weird in this one. Like it's odd that they chose to not go back and redo stuff that they had done previously again, like in the first 3, but to redo Inferno and the base conceits of Inferno and that like confusion about reality and Pinhead caring about morality, one right after the other, because it's not a Saw movie where there's this like soap opera plot going on beside it. It's just this.
Yeah.
It's very weird to be like, I like this idea. I'm going to do it better right after that one because people want to see more of that, I guess. It's just weird for to have, out of the 5 Hellraiser movies that exist, though there's weird nods made to other ones, Inferno's the one that you went, that's
the wave of the future.
Yeah.
Can we just let's just get the dumb twist out of the way just so we can talk freely about this. And a very major thing that happens with said twist, which is yada, yada, yada. He's been in hell all along. Okay, sure, fine. Just like the last one. You figure that out right out the gate. In a scene that is obviously a nod to part 2, early on, there's a doctor doing open brain surgery on him. Can you have open brain surgery? I know you can have open heart surgery. Open brain just sounds funny.
Yeah. I mean, they need to access the brain somehow.
So they open up your brain.
They open up your brain. They open up your skull. It's like the end of Hannibal. They just...
Yeah. I guess you would call it open skull surgery instead of open brain. But then you'd call it open rib surgery for... Okay. Anyway, there's other problems with this movie.
As someone who's been arrested for pretending to be a doctor, I can tell you.
Anyway, so that scene is kind of fun in the sense that like it's a big focus on a goopy brain.
Yeah.
And the doctor is so clearly wanting to be the doctor from part 2 with the monologue, but it's just kind of a dollar store version of it. It doesn't have near the gravitas as that first one.
As you can see, the thinnest layer of cortex separates the part of the brain that feels pleasure from the part of the brain that feels pain. Over the course of this procedure, I will be triggering memories, disrupting the unconscious.
Well, because they want to make it seem like part of the confusion of our main character, and that is the main emotion in this movie.
Yes.
Both from the viewer and the protagonist, is that after the car accident, he apparently survived, but Kirsty did not. And as a result, he's had brain trauma, and he's on these pills. He's getting headaches. So is he going insane, or is this really happening? What else is going on? And so he has nothing but hallucinations. As we said, there's every 4 minutes, there's oh no, that stuff didn't actually happen. Oh no, wait, it did. Or this other weird thing is happening, but he's never it doesn't really compound anything.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of weird stuff that keeps happening to this guy. And he's like, what? And then occasionally has sex.
Right.
So it's like life in that way, where it's just confusion and then maybe there's sex. I don't know.
Right.
So he keeps encountering people and they say weird stuff to him, and then he just looks confused and then moves on with his life.
Which gives you no sense of raising stakes.
Right.
If he was afraid at each turn, if he was directed to act in such a way that he felt terror each time that built and built, you'd go, oh, so this is building to something. But instead, it's just blank confusion, which does not do anything to ratchet tension. The
central thing becomes no longer oh my God, is this actually happening? Is it, okay, is he in hell? Is he just having a brain surgery? Is he this is a thing that's happening during brain surgery? It's what unreality is this going to be?
Yeah.
Because this clearly doesn't matter in a way that seems like it's going to affect the outcome one way or the other. You know what I mean? It's... either he's dead and he's in hell, in which case, whatever, or this is just a brain surgery, a hallucination, in which case, all right, whatever.
Walking to the office, going to the police station, going back to his apartment, going to a weird place that seems like it's like a sweatshop to make, cut rate jeans or something. That's our pinhead layer for this movie.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
yeah. Well, also that Doug Bradley does double duty in this movie.
He does. You said duty.
Yes, I did. And appropriately so, because he's not only just Pinhead, he's also Chris Angel Mind Freak, apparently. Because they make him play this mysterious salesman that sells him the box. And they give him this long long-haired rocker wig and this little soul patch thing going, and he just looks like Pinhead got divorced. It's so sad.
He's hanging out in his cool apartment with a race car bed.
Yeah, it's Chris Gaines, it's Mind Freak, it's whatever you want it to be. It's just,
yes,
it's such a bad look, and it's just you can see how old the Doug Bradley kind of looks, and that's you're man,
right?
You're not doing Doug any favors here.
Yeah, I wonder whose choice that was. Was that the director's choice? Was that Doug just going well, I see 2.5 pages of my own dialogue here, and can I do anything else?
Right, yeah.
And more importantly, will you pay me twice?
Or maybe it's something where because I would do this, or maybe it's something where he's look, I'm kind of the bald thing, I'm tired of it. I'm really kind of into this hair. Maybe if I make this cool character, people will be like associated with the character and they'll just kind of accept that I wear the wig and so I can be cool.
My other character just didn't take off. So I guess I'm just going back to Garth Brooks. I mean, Pinhead.
Yeah, it's so dumb looking. It's real bad. And just that also, like, if you're watching this as someone who's seen the other 5 Hellraisers or seen any Hellraiser or just whatever, like you recognize Doug Bradley and you're like, okay, well, that guy's Pinhead.
But also, is he supposed to be kind of like the merchant character of the first 1 or 2, obviously? Mm-hmm. So like at least those merchants just saying, "What's your pleasure, sir?" just sounded like way cooler. And I was just kind of like in that moment with them.
Well, it's so much more exotic and it's usually like people that are seeking out this box, that this box has power. Whereas this it's unclear why he's even getting it at all. Mm-hmm. Why we find out later he gives it to Kirsty. Yeah. There's just these things that kind of just get tossed off. Like, well, obviously this is happening, but then you're not supposed to know any of the other Hellraiser movies. So it doesn't make any sense. Why?
And why is it a circle first? Why is it a ball at first?
Because it's magic. Because wouldn't that be cool? It's a ball that turns into a cube because he rolls it across the desk and it becomes a cube at one point. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, all right.
I guess they're up in the puzzle box, like changing the lore there, I guess. Fine.
Well, it's like how there's the Borg ball in the Borg cube. They do different ones.
Is there a Borg ball?
I believe there's a Borg sphere. It's in Memory Alpha, so that means it's real Star Trek shit.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll go with that.
Fine, if you say so.
Fine. Bested.
Yeah. So clearly Hellraiser is a member of the Borg.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we always say the Cenobites look like the Borg. Mm-hmm. So, and Clive Barker actually says that. All right, we're back, baby. Anyway, so the merchant, it's unclear why he goes there, except for like, I guess he has a business card that says like, "I'll solve all your problems."
Well, it says like all problems solved.
Okay. And I would like one of those cards.
That sounds great. Unless it's like the back is one free copy of Hellraiser, Hellseeker. But yeah, the leading up to this moment, the way this movie tries to get you to be like, things seem off, things seem weird, is like the color grading on the whole thing, as we said, looks funky. He's on a bus and there's some guy playing rock music and it's too loud and he's like, turn it down, and the guy just gives him a weird look and he's got piercings, and then he like walks by a dog and the dog barks at him. None of that's scary. It's all just annoying. It's all just like, what if hell was just kind of annoying?
Right.
And so it doesn't really set the tone very well. Mm-hmm. While he's at work, he's having weird conversations with his coworkers, and he like moves. It's not even like he catches a glimpse of it. He just moves some papers on a cork board, and then it's behind there. And he's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll look into this. This means something, apparently. So he's just stumbling onto this stuff.
I guess someone put it there. Whatever.
It's not very engaging.
I was watching the deleted scenes before we recorded, so I don't remember if this was actually in the film or not, but the merchant says something to the effect of, in the deleted scene, he says, some people have spent their life trying to open this box, others open it immediately. I was just like, yeah, that was my complaint for the past couple of movies, where it's just like, some of you doofuses take forever to do this, and a lot of other people just managed to get it open right there, on the can, like last time. It's like the equivalent to Garfield cartoons in the back of your toilet at this point.
It's like, do I play Candy Crush or do I unleash hell?
Anyway, so that's our not very atmospheric warehouse and merchant guy that kind of sets all this in motion. So yes, he's dead. He's in hell the entire time. So what does that mean for Kirsty? Okay, so let's just get to it. Kirsty has decided that she's going to barter with Pinhead and bring Pinhead 5 souls so that she can get away from Pinhead.
Yes.
So what I love about this is just that Pinhead has been making this big ass situation for, I guess, 3 movies now. Part 1, Part 2, Part 6, of saying I will track you to the ends of the earth through hell's domain, etc., unless you can give me 5 souls, and then we can call it even.
Yeah, you're good. You equals 5.
That's it. There's something so deflating about that.
It really is. Well, because this is the big twist, is because you think is that this whole time he's been having every single woman he meets is just throwing herself at him. And he is apparently like,
I know what that's like.
oh yeah. Like I was at the coffee shop the other day and the server smiled at me. It's like, calm down.
Yeah, geez. I mean, we are podcasters.
But anyway, it really keeps making it sound like there's the cop that keeps investigating him, 2 cops. We can get into that, but that he engineered this, that he killed her, and that he's not really remembering it. He keeps being encountered by like these things that are happening. He's like, well, that's not me. That's not what I do. But then you never really have an idea of who this character even is, but whatever. But so it's revealed that yes, that he gave this box to Kirsty, and Pinhead was like, this has been my plan all along.
I will not rest until I get what I want. And what I want is you.
Because I've been after you this whole time, which not really. He hasn't. Like he was after her in the first one because opened the box and then she was like, wait, you want Frank because Frank escaped. He's like, no, he didn't. But then he did. So we got to get Frank.
Yeah.
Now he's just randomly collecting souls. That never happened. That was, I mean, in the third one, we can say that's sort of when it started. As we said, Pinhead freelancing, trying to make his own army.
Yeah.
But then it just seemed like he was there to murder a bunch of people. It didn't seem like he was that invested in like harvesting souls. So this idea that he's become so moralistic doesn't make any sense. And the idea that he's creating these whole worlds for people when Frank just got a room in Leviathan's maze. So unless they're doing some renovating, I don't know. He's seems like a raw deal for Frank.
Shouldn't these 5 people be opening the box themselves?
Right.
Like you opened the box. We came.
Yeah.
He says that in the first film. There's like agency that a person has to have, I guess.
The whole point of it is that is this pursuit of desire and new experiences. Like Pinhead does not care that you had affairs. He cares if those affairs involved, weird whips and stuff. There's a scene, the scene I was mentioning earlier where I actually like this bit is that he has a moment, Trevor has a moment where this boss has been very sexually forward to him, and she comes in like to his house and makes reference to him filming them filming each other having sex. That's the thing they do a lot. They start having sex and he cuts it off. But then on the TV that the camera's cut to, it's still them having sex. And he like waves his hand in front of the TV. And it's like he's waving in front of the picture of them having sex. I thought that was a great gag.
Right.
Then she's eventually murdered by Cenobites who come up and choke her with a plastic bag. That's really? That's like Cenobites. They just like plastic bag. Like that's not
plastic bag.
Yeah, there's no whips chains. There's no prolonged suffering. That's what they're into. But this one, not so much. And this division of hell that Pinhead works for now, it's just let's get these crazy freaks to choke a person.
Yeah, right. That scene is also. Did you ever see the remake of House on Haunted Hill, like the '90s version, early 2000s? Yeah. I think that there's a similar scene in that. I was trying to remember what it was from. Cinematographer, Rick Bota.
Hell yeah, buddy. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that Pinhead is like, no, I need souls. And the fact that I'm like, I have this personal connection to you now is like, oh, well, but if there's 5 people that you can just take, which then Kirsty proceeds to murder all these people.
Yes. So, I mean, that's what I was getting at like 10 minutes ago, like what that means for our final girl. Kirsty is now a murderer.
Yeah.
Are we like, I could be okay with that as a big, long arc of a final girl over a couple of movies who now she's like on her way to becoming a Cenobite or something like that. That might be kind of neat.
Right. Like a breakdown of some kind. Yeah.
Yeah. Good God. Like she's just kind of like, I mean, ladies sticking up for other ladies, like really sending demons after another woman for like just sleeping with your guy, Yeah,
it makes sense on a level like or gives her some cover on a level when it's just him, because we find out she apparently inherited a bunch of money that both Larry and Frank left to her, which is very funny, but fine, whatever, that they own all these properties. Which, I mean, it would make some sense for Frank to be independently wealthy and,
I was just going to say, like, maybe through all of Frank's pursuits of pleasure and just like country hopping, I can kind of buy it.
But I just don't buy. I could see Frank being like, I'd like to leave everything to my penis. That's it. We find out that, so he and this friend of his at work were going to kill her and then split it 50-50. But then the friend feels slighted because...
you don't remember anything. Well, let me remind you about your plan. We'd kill Kirsty, make it look like a suicide, you get all her money, and we'd split it 50-50. Huh? But none of that's gonna happen now, is it? You had to go solo with your little car accident bit, and then you fucked it all up. What were you thinking, Trev?
He tells him that at gunpoint. Instead of being like, I'm gonna get my vengeance, he shoots himself in the head.
Yeah.
Because he's like, the cops are onto us.
Thanks for tying up your own loose end.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. So like him being like, oh, it turns out she knew this whole time and like used it against him. Okay, if that was it. But she, and it's really unclear because there's, as we said, I think the end is supposed to be this is what reality is, but it's so back and forth. You don't know where you stand. But it really does seem like the movie's like, no, she killed these 5 or these 4 other women.
Yeah.
Or like 3 women and that guy. What?
Yeah.
Like I'm glad Kirsty's back, but a weird turn for her with nothing leading to it. Like I said, like if there's some kind of breakdown or something, but it's her just being like, oh, things are so great. I will end everything you love.
Yeah. So it solves 2 problems for her. It gets Pinhead off of her back, and she is allowed revenge on Trevor.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's it, really. So she gets Pinhead to like agree to take these 5 souls who, which again are equal to hers somehow. And it's just this idea that now she can get off scot-free. But again, like, I guess I'm just so stuck on the idea that our heroic figure of the first 2 movies is now a vindictive murderer.
Yeah.
At the service of Pinhead.
Right. It's just,
sort of,
But it's just like, why not? Like I can make this happen. Because again, like if there was any sort of clarity as to why he even knew about the box, why Trevor knew about the box, why he gave her the box to open. Yeah. And she was like, I hope you get what you want out of this. Yeah. It's just, it really is doesn't make any sense. I mean, I hate to keep saying it doesn't make any sense, but like, it really just is out there. It doesn't seem to relate to anything. It just seemed like a neat idea someone had once.
I mean, I would be a lot more interested in this idea if the whole movie was from Kirsty's point of view.
Yeah.
Like if we were just kind of like going along with her, just like, can I really change? It would almost be like from Julia's point of view in the first film, like where she has to collect these men and give to Frank and
right. Or like she's actually like in hell or whatever they both died or something like that. And then they're both trying to get out and it's revealed that he's been screwing her over this whole time. So she's like, well, screw you. Something like that would have been some sort of coherence through all of it would have been fine. Not to just rewrite the movie, but just saying that it's completely incoherent. And so that's just, oh, I guess this is happening now.
Yeah.
And the idea that like repeatedly throughout this hints are dropped that he's in hell, where with people either saying stuff like, oh, we're watching you, or, weird little turns of phrases and whatever. And my favorite of that being he actually encounters Pinhead. He encounters Pinhead a couple of times. It's more just like than the wacky next door neighbor we got last time. Like once he's in, I think the broken down factory or whatever, and he sees Pinhead in a reflection of water.
You killed them. You killed Kirsty. You killed Gwen. And the others. You killed them. And now you're trying to pin it on me.
The killer is amongst us. Yes.
Just tell him. Like, what is this dancing around of like, you have to hold this guy's hand to this realization because he's just not picking it up because he just keeps encountering all these weird stuff and all these people saying crazy stuff to him and these references to hell, whatever. But he's like, I don't know, it's fine.
Well, I do love the device of that, though, when he says the murderer is around us and the camera just like tilts down to a puddle of water and it reveals his face. And I'm like, yeah, that's what reflections are.
Yeah.
Like, it's supposed to feel like so dramatic.
Yeah, like groundbreaking.
Like, no, that's how water works.
But he doesn't even have the realization there. He's just like, yeah, I'm looking good, Chief. I can't figure out what they want to do with Hellraiser, with Pinhead here. Like he's supposed to guide him into being in this morality like thing. Is this his confusion, the suffering that they enjoy? Because that internal torment doesn't seem to make any sense to me because it is just, okay, he's figured out he's in hell. Now what? Like it doesn't, because this was the same question at the end of the last one where it's like, so he's stuck here. In the last one, it seemed like he knew he was going to be that way forever. But wouldn't you eventually just kind of be like, yeah, this is what it is now. And okay, I'm in hell. Oh, you're going to be weird to me because this is in hell. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Like there's one point in this where he kind of gets like a little tired of it where I think the detective says something weird to him and he's like, fuck, yeah, I know. And then just leaves. I said, why don't you just do that? Why at any point in this, just leave? Just stop doing this.
Just go home.
Just walk away. Yeah. It just doesn't seem like it's that effective of a punishment.
I do, in terms of little hints being picked up. Now, this is towards the end where things are starting to unravel, but I do like the police detective that has all black eyes who makes an origami black box or something like that.
Oh my God.
It was so corny. Made me laugh.
It's so corny because it's also, I mean, it's dumb in general. Yes. But like the way it's done is also very stupid because it's this just Brian Posehn looking guy. Like, yeah, he's got black eyes and he starts folding up this paper very quickly and they keep like cutting away or whatever because making a box out of origami, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's also at the end of it when it's done, it's like, oh yeah, that's a box. It's not like a cool crane that moves or something. It's just like,
right.
Oh, you made a cube. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Did you blow it up?
The mystique that is treated with is so just misplaced.
I wish he would have just made a paper football and nudged it towards him on his desk to be like, "You want to play paper football on our desk?"
Well, it seems like a Naked Gun or airplane gag, where it's like he's working his cutaway and he's like got paper dolls strung out or something like that. Just a bunch of weird stuff because it's really just silly. It's very silly.
He's making a puzzle box, man.
Yeah, he's making a cube. It's cool. I think I did that in elementary school. It's not that exciting.
So right after that, the only halfway decent, and I don't even think the effect is that good, but the part that made me go, I kind of like that, is the two detectives when they're revealed, where the head comes out of the back of the other head and kind of looks through the bars and it's a two-headed detective. I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying that like, oh, that's something to look at. Yeah, that's something halfway interesting.
If you've ever seen Men in Black 2, it's the Johnny Knoxville character for Men in Black 2. It's the same kind of effect, but not as good. He's been dealing with two detectives, one of which is a little bit nicer, the other one's a lot meaner. They're the same guy. Mm-hmm. And okay, like, oh, but thematically, it's because you can have light and dark inside of you, like Trevor. Sure, whatever you say, man. Would be cool if you put that in your movie. But yeah, it's a weird effect. And I think having the one guy kind of like the fact that it's coming out of the back of his head and he's like turning and reacting to it, but it's not moving. It's a little
wonky. And I think they start laughing, which is pretty corny too.
Well, and then there's another digital effect a little bit earlier when that his co-conspirator, when he shoots himself in the head, it's very computer looking. Like it's just a black crack in his head. It's not, there's very little blood or whatever. It's
sure,
very silly looking, but whatever, it's fine. But yeah, that didn't really do it for me. And again, like it's this, like I said, it's this weird twist that's supposed to like mean something or like be this revelatory thing, but it doesn't feel like it. He certainly doesn't seem like he takes it that way. He's like, whoa, that's weird, and then runs away, which has been kind of doing the whole movie.
I mean, those detectives, they're not supposed to be a Cenobite. They're just some sort of, I guess this is getting into lore a little bit, but like as far as like physical weird things in Hellraiser movies, you've got the Cenobites.
Or the engineer.
That's true. The engineer. We don't have like lesser demons or something like that in this. So I just didn't know if they were supposed to be a Cenobite. And I truly don't care one way or the other. I'm just trying to remember for the sake of it.
It's like that. There's also a faceless killer, like masked killer that shows up a few times in this. That was exactly like the thing or very similar to the thing in Inferno.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure because the Cenobites do show up at one point, and I thought because there's three new ones, and because they're so just like boop, 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 I'm like, oh, these things must have really looked terrible. But you look at the photo, they look fine. They're pretty cool, but they just don't really do much to them. One of them, I think it's like the Doctor Cenobite or something. Looks a lot like the evil doctor character in Dead by Day, the video game Dead by Daylight, which I got kind of a kick out of. But they're fine looking. They just didn't use them for some reason. They just they needed to have Dean Winters look confused more. They needed more shots of that.
Yeah, and you know when they do have a kill scene, like you said, it's just like Cenobites placing a plastic bag over somebody. I guess that is supposed to be like, we're going to make it look like Trevor did it. So he uses a plastic bag. And I get that. But like Cenobites don't really strike me as people who are their idea is to like, we got to frame somebody.
Yeah.
No, they're going to like tear your guts out with a chain and a hook. Subtlety and misdirect is not what they are about.
Yeah. They don't care that you're horny. They have transcended horniness. It doesn't like autoerotic asphyxiation. That's nothing.
Yeah.
Like you think that's cool. Check out what I've got here. And so that aspect of it is gone, of that, like just going, oh, pleasure and pain aren't that different. And then doing nothing with that for the entire movie is kind of a waste of time when it's really the whole deal. Like there's a one of the sexy women that is accosting Trevor this whole time is a acupuncturist.
Of course.
He's just like randomly getting that done, of course. And like Pinhead comes in and takes a long time to pull out a needle out of his head and then stab him. And like what should be just like a quick jump scare, but it just is so padded, which is very much this entire movie. Just things that should happen like that take a very, very long time. And it's not just like sensibilities are different now or whatever. It's that you're trying to keep up a certain feering and you're just not doing it. You're like, there's no tension in the scene. It's just get on with it.
Yeah. And the sex scenes in this and the tawdry stuff just feels so tame compared to like a Clive Barker type of thing. And like, again, I'm not beating the drum for just like more boobs. I'm not saying that. It's more just like, but that is a fundamental thing about Hellraiser is like the kinky side of things. Like I don't think that anybody involved in Hellraiser Hellseeker knew anything about underground sex clubs in London in the early 80s, and
it just feels very perfunctory.
Right.
It doesn't have that, some of, as we talked about before, the kind of the passion of Julia and Frank, because you haven't bothered to flesh out any of these characters. So it's just some pretty people thrash around each other, which is fine, but it doesn't have that same kind of illicitness that the first couple had. And so and again, like, because you're also presenting it as this very sort of moralistic thing, because Julia and Frank's relationship was so much more about needing and desire and stuff like that, whereas it just feels like, no, I'm a piece of shit and I just like boning. Yeah. Yeah. It didn't have that, like, he wasn't trying to transcend any of this or, seek for new experiences or all that, or nothing was awakened in him. He's just like, I like having sex with girls. That's it.
And that almost makes me want to, like, with the whole plot of Kirsty's money seems so perfunctory in a Hellraiser thing too. Right. Like, I kind of wish that Trevor would have been just like, well, one woman can't satisfy me. I need 3 women with like hooks for hands, like that, something like that. You could have like left the money bit out of it and just said like, well, we did get married, but my desires and my appetites are just too strong for one woman. And she's like, oh God, here I go again.
If you want to be material with it, the flesh is right there. You know what I mean? Like tying that part to it is more strange and more just kind of seemingly out of character with what Hellraiser was versus what it's quickly becoming, versus like he wanted a bunch of money. That's, again, like, what is money to Pinhead? What does he care?
As we start to kind of bring this in for a landing, I did want to point out that not a whole lot of on-screen deaths. It's like you get the fake. I mean, what's a death in this movie anyway? It's not like Trevor getting stabbed through the neck by Pinhead is a death, but you see that one.
You see the plastic bag.
Yep, and the guy shoot himself in the head. But there's a lot of like found. Bodies.
Well, because they're trying to keep up that mystery of who did this? Was it you? Was it someone else? Right. Was it Pinhead?
So as far as just like, a very basic level, like horror movie gore scenes, like you don't get much of that at all in this either, because you keep finding the bodies instead. So
these long sort of torment these people in a realm of fantasy only to land the kill. It's just, they want to turn Hellraiser into Freddy for people who like to frown. There's nothing fun about him or whatever. It's just like, no, I'm going to make this dimension where this unreality where life sucks for you. And then I show up and go like, haha, life sucks for you. You're actually dead. Right. I do like when in the flashbacks we get occasional flashbacks of him and Kirsty, particularly like just in their bedroom, like not doing sex stuff, but just hanging out and him filming everything. Yeah. And there's a photo collage of apparently their wedding. It's like our crazy wedding. And I like the idea that they had, I did see that. Yeah, that they had a normal wedding and then they had a crazy wedding. Right. But yeah, so you get like, that's the most you get about their relationship, other than some of them just telling things at you. Because when it's revealed that he's the giant piece of shit, and it's like, well, okay, but that's not who we've watched the whole time. It never seemed it seemed like he's always the Trevor we're following has little to do with the Trevor that existed in the real world, it seems like.
Yeah.
Because he seems constantly at odds with like, well, that's not who I am. Well,
Right.
apparently you are, and you don't seem like it as we're following you around, which I'm glad we didn't follow a complete guy that was just a complete shithead the entire time, like Inferno, but it still is like, who even is this guy?
I guess if these random women are coming up to him, like the neighbor and the boss, that implies that he has had an affair with each one of these women.
Right.
But otherwise, we just see him be confused instead of be kind of shitty.
Right.
Overall.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
it seems to be, what? I don't remember this at all. But at the end, it's revealed that, he actually died in the car crash. Well, no, he didn't die in the car crash. It's revealed that it actually killed these other people and then shoots him in the head while he's driving.
Makes perfect sense.
Come on, man. What are you doing, Kirsty? But yeah.
But then she tells the cops at the very end, he pulled out a gun and shot himself in the head while driving. And the cops are just like, yep, checks out.
Yeah, why wouldn't he?
Take him away, boys. Just like everything's done here.
Well, we also get a revisit of why this might have happened. There's a scene earlier, because in this scene, this revelatory end piece, we get all these like little things that were in there that tie back around. The main one of which being there's a scene earlier where he pulls an eel out of himself.
Yes.
He pulls an eel out of his mouth because inside you are not two wolves, but one eel.
Yes.
And it turns out that is because he was drowning and an eel went into his mouth, I guess. And they find that at the end. And we have not talked at all, for good reason, because it doesn't matter, about Dr. Dormier.
Oh, yes.
Which is French for sleep, by the way. Ooh, how clever.
Oh.
That's some.
And more Dr. Sleep?
Yeah, no, that's some Ashley, not Ashley, that's some Audrey Horn shit.
Yeah.
I'm Hester Prynne.
Hester Prynne.
That there's this doctor he keeps seeing that really cares about him. Like when he first, at the beginning of the movie, is like very concerned and has revisited him several times. But then there's some question about whether or not she's real, leading to the one supposed to be funny scene in this movie that I laughed at. The rest of the laughs, I was having a great time watching this because it is just ridiculous. But where he opens a door, he's looking for this Dr. Dormier person and opens a door, and it's just a janitor smoking a cigarette. He's like, you got me.
Yeah.
That was great. And then Dr. Dormier shows up and they start talking. Then janitor's like, who are you talking to, buddy?
Yeah.
And it turns out at the end, she and the other doctor are coroners. The way they both deal with the dead bodies, no, don't take him away. I have one more thing I got to do.
Yeah.
And the doctor comes over and looks at him and goes yeah, he's totally dead. And then Dormier comes over and is like, goodbye, Trevor. I can't believe you talk to corpses. That's weird. Yeah, because it is. That's not a normal thing. You just saw this guy, and he's not like they're just going to launch him into space immediately after this. You still have to go do the autopsy, probably.
Right.
Caring for this dude is very just tacked on, and it's more like I'm with the doctor. She's a huge weirdo. Yeah, that sucks.
The coroner's line at the end is so funny to me because he does have to say out of my way, let me take a look. Oh yeah, that's weird, and I'm a coroner. He literally
take it from me. This job title.
Yes. He's like, remember, I am also a coroner, not the doctor from the visions earlier.
Are you getting this, audience?
Yes. Did I need a little bit of that at this point? Maybe. I might have kind of zoned out.
I mean,
but
you can tell me whatever. I'm like, okay, that's what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess the lesson there is don't talk to dead people because you're just causing them more torment, lady. What are you doing?
True.
But pleasure and pain. Ooh, they're so close. But it ends on just this beautiful note. This is just so good. The detective, who's real, even though Trevor has never seen him. I don't know why this was the representation of the dream, but that actual detective who's real.
Yep.
Stops Kirsty. She's walking away and it's like, hey, do you know anything about this? We found it in the car and it's in an evidence bag and it's the cube. It's the lament configuration. And she's like, oh yeah, that was my anniversary present. And he's like, well, tell you what, you got a nice face.
Yeah.
I was going to turn this into evidence, but why don't you take it? Something to remember him by. We were married. What do you mean something to I didn't just meet this guy. I have a life with him. I have to go home and dismantle now. Yeah, no, give me one more thing to throw away. Thanks, detective.
Yeah. And also I don't know a ton about police procedural type of things, but I think the only other person in the car of an apparent suicide, quote unquote, you're going to take her down to the station and ask her a few questions instead of like, hey, have this nice shiny gold box and off with you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I mean, like that would make, considering that's been the part of the through line with Trevor's whole story, to be like, oh, but when she does it, it's fine. Now, if you wanted to tie it back somehow and put more of a pin in it with the detective being like, say some sort of like phrase or something that ties back to like, I think this is yours or something, where it's like, maybe there's a pinhead glint in his eye or something.
Yeah.
This nightmare isn't over and Pinhead's still onto you. Whereas this just seems like a shitty detective went like, nah, take the evidence. We're not going to use it. We don't really care.
Yeah, it's too much paperwork.
Yeah. Look, he's a white guy. You're a white lady. It's fine. Just move on.
It's fine. And then they end on a crane shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought to myself, like, they had the crane that day.
Yep.
We're gonna like tilt up as a big wide shot. Yeah, go for it.
Do it, Rob. You got the crane. Yeah. Make it work for you.
All right, let's honor our dead. Gwen, played by Sarah Jane Redman, suffocated and strangled off screen. Tawny, played by Jodie Thompson, found gagged and strangled. Brett, played by Trevor White, shot himself in the head. Sage, played by Karen De Silva, ice pick through head. Inmate, found with face ripped off. Trevor, played by Dean Winters, impaled by hooks, shot in head, and drowned. I ain't saying it was a good movie. It's not a good Hellraiser movie. I did laugh a few times. It's frustrating to watch, actually, because I've definitely found, I mean, I always kind of knew this, but like movies that are made up of inconsequential scenes just kind of like stitched together just make me feel frustrated.
Yeah.
In a supernatural sort of way, pass out, wake up. Not my bag. So this one didn't work so much for me. Somehow I found it less infuriating than Inferno in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, really. Maybe because I was Inferno came first, and now I was just like, oh, more of this shit. Okay.
Yeah, I think that could be a part of it. I think because I feel the same way. I actually like this better than Inferno, but that's a distinction without a difference, really. But right. This didn't have the self-seriousness that Inferno has.
Okay,
this is a little campier, like a little bit. I mean, some of it's just that by virtue of it not looking great and kind of, it's budgetary limits. Not that Inferno was amazing, but that it did feel a little bit, unintentionally or not, it felt a little bit campier. And so I was a little bit more on board for that. And then just, I mean, the Doug Bradley Mind Freak and just all these choices just made them that just were making me laugh because they're very officially done. They're very
right.
They're very silly. Yeah. So yeah, it's not something I'm like, no, I absolutely check it out. But it's disappointing to see them do the exact same thing again, like the exact same thing again. But yeah, it lacks that self-seriousness of like the biggest puzzle of all was the human mind. It's a little bit less of that stuff.
Woof. So gosh, next week it's coming, baby.
Oh, here we go.
The one that I've been waiting for. Not because it's a good movie. In fact, I don't remember anything about this movie. Just called Deader, and that's funny. So we're gonna watch Hellraiser Deader next week.
More Deader.
It's just not a word. I'll save it all for next time. I'm already pissed.
It is a very, very funny title.
It's such a funny title.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Deader, and then Hell World, which I'm weirdly looking forward to because it's the computer one, but. These are all Rick Bota joints, so we're in the Rick Bota renaissance of Hellraiser right now.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where it goes next. If it's because I mean they at least I will say the difference in this one is that it makes it seem like Pinhead used what he learned in Inferno combined with Kirsty's the Kirsty stuff. So it's like his new job has given him some new skills, but it's not that many, so he still just does what he knows how to do. Yeah. So it'll be interesting in Pinhead's continuing career what he does next to see if it's just no, I've learned this move and this is the shortcut I'll learn and this is what I'm going to do now, or if there's going to be some more more slashing and whatever.
Finds out next time. Yes, the job market is deader.
It's deader
right now.
Pinhead's LinkedIn profile says ready to work.
Right. Open work.
Open to work.
Yes. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for sticking with us on this. I was delighted to hear from everybody when I posted on Instagram to see who is still with us on episode 6.
Yeah.
And many of you replied that you were, which is fantastic. So will you stick around for Hellraiser 7 Deader? I hope so.
Yeah, it's called Deader. How could you not?
You got to be curious.
Yeah.
So
what does that mean?
Yeah. So, all right, everyone. Well, join us next week for Hellraiser Deader. And until then, consider checking out our Patreon. We talked about 3 separate movies this month on Patreon. One of them was an Indonesian Hellraiser ripoff, which was a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah.
And then 2 other movies that were equally as interesting, but you'll have to go check out our Patreon, or I guess our Instagram account, to see what those movies are. There's a whole other party going on the Patreon, and you're all invited.
Yes.
But until then, you can find us at This May Hurt a Bit Pod on Instagram, Hurt a Bit Pod on YouTube, and you can email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. And under Blue Sky and my own name, James Strayer, if you're ever over there, that I post on occasionally.
Yeah, same.
So,
I mean, I'm not there that much, but I'm there too. So whatever.
Check us out over there. Let us know that you're keeping up with us on the 7th installment of Hellraiser.
And start taking bets at how many times we're going to say the word deader in the next episode.
That's a great idea. Yeah. So get your over-unders in, do some sports betting.
Yeah.
I guess you can bet on everything now.
Oh, yeah.
If we show up on like one of those like sports bet websites, how many times will This May Hurt a Bit say deader?
Yeah.
I mean,
time to cash in. Yeah. Help me rig the system and buy me a refrigerator.
Right. All right, everyone. Cue up that deader, and we'll see you next week. Good night.
Good night.
This has been a Caretaker Press production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. Give us a 5-star review over on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.